Hello everyone, it's Karen here from Stampin' with Karen Spreckley. Welcome back to my YouTube channel and blog for another Monday video. This week I am going to be using the products from the Christmas Stampin' Up catalogue, or the seasonal Stampin' Up catalogue. And this week I've chosen to use the Free Skate stamp set and the coordinating dies. These can be purchased together as a bundle for a 10% discount, or you can just purchase them separately if it's just the stamps or just the dies that you want. I'm going to be using both today. My plan today is to make for you a cute little gift box, but I'm going to use some sort of slightly grungier Christmas colours, and I hope this is going to work out because I haven't actually done the project all the way through yet. I'm just going to go for it on camera. As usual, all the links to the products that I'm using can be found in the description bar below. I'm just using products from Stampin' Up, and those can all be purchased from Stampin' Up through those links. You'll also find links down there to all my other various social media bits and pieces, so you can catch me where is most suitable for you. So let's get cracking with this project. So I've got all my bits and pieces close by. I'll just put the stamps and dies to one side for the moment, and that punch and those inks. So the first thing we need to do is we need to create the box, and I'm going to use crumb cake cardstock for the box today, and I'm going to do some tone on tone stamping on that. So I want to do that first before I cut and score this cardstock to create the box. So I've taken out the multiple snowflake stamp. Oh, excuse me, how rude, yawning away. So I'm going to use this snowflake stamp from the stamp set, and I'm going to stamp tone on tone. So I'm using crumb cake ink on crumb cake cardstock, and I've just realised we're a little bit dark down here. I'm just going to put my additional light on just to give us a bit more light. That's a bit better. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to ink up my stamp, and I'm going to stamp randomly all over this cardstock, twisting and turning as I go to create a nice pattern on this card that we're going to create a box with. So just bear with me while I get all these stamped up. So lots of beautiful little snowflakes all in this one stamp, so it makes covering a large piece of cardstock quite quick. Let's turn that round again. I'm not covering every square centimetre or every tiny little piece. I'm leaving some gaps, but I'm giving it quite a good covering. And turn that round, carry on up this side. Try and twist and turn a little bit. You perhaps just need a little bit more down here. And I think that'll probably do actually. I've just got my stamping scrub over to one side, so I'll give my stamp a clean. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do then is we're going to make up the box itself, and then we'll do some decorating of the box. So I've got a piece of standard international A4 here, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim that down to 8 by 10.5 inches. So that means that this particular design can be used on international A4 as well. So I'm going to just take a little bit off, sorry, I mean American sized A4. I'll just take a little bit off there, and then I'm going to take this down to 10.5 inches. So a couple of spare bits. Now we need to do some scoring. And on the short side, we need to score at 1.5 inches from each side. So I've got my light grey scoring blade on my trimmer. Alternatively, you could just use a bone folder, or if you've got a scoring tool, you could use that. But I've still got my old Stampin' Up trimmer, and I've still got using my score blades on there. Then on the long side, we're going to score it in a few places. We're going to start off at 1.5 inches. Then we're going to score at 4.5 inches. Then we're going to score at 6 inches. Then we're going to score at 9 inches. So that's all my score lines. I'm going to put my trimmer away for now. So I don't know how well you can see those. You might see them better on the back. if I put them into shadow, those score lines. So the next job is to fold and burnish all of those score lines. So I'm going to burnish the cardstock with my bone folder. And this is so we get a good crease on all of our score lines, because this is what will form the contents of our box. Now I call this box, it's kind of a pizza style box. It doesn't have a separate lid, it's all in one piece. Now the next thing I need to do is I need to cut away some pieces and make some tabs and things to stick this box together. Now I have made myself a template. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut up each of the rectangles, top and bottom, then I'm going to notch into the squares, take a little bit off, and then I'm also going to trim a little bit off, and that will help us make this card. So I'm just going to use my snips. So I'm going to tilt this cardstock, so I'm just going to cut to the left hand side of the score line, because I want to keep my rectangles as neat and as straight as I can, because they will actually form the box sides. So I'm just going to do all this trimming up. So I'm just trimming up as far as that horizontal score line. Then I'm going to go back in and I'm going to take a little wedge out of each side of the square and then trim a little bit off the square. So just like my template, I'm going to take a little wedge out of each side of the squares, and then I'm going to cut a little piece off. And the reason I'm cutting a piece off is so that these tabs don't overlap when they're inside the box. And over here now, take off a little bit and trim that down a bit. So I'm going to do exactly the same now on this side. I'll just tip it up so I can catch the score lines correctly in the light. I'm trying to leave the score lines on the squares so they don't, but it doesn't really matter if you don't, to be perfectly honest. You'll barely see them when it's finished because it's a stamped box anyway. So snip out those little wedges and trim down. Nearly there with this. And trim that one down a little way. And then over to here and trim that one off. So we've now completed all of the trimming and scoring. So I'll show you now that that matches up with my template. Now I need to add some adhesive so that I can stick this box together. I think I'm going to use tear and tape just to keep the adhesive side of things nice and dry. So I just put a little bit of tape, then stop me getting all gluey on camera. I'll tore that one off a little bit early. Let's a little bit on that one, a little bit on that one, and a little bit on that one. So that's where you need to place your adhesive, on each of those small tabs. So I'm just going to peel off the backing now. This can be lots of fun sometimes. Sometimes it's super duper quick, but of course because I'm filming today, it's going to be super duper slow. So please bear with me while I remove the backing from the double-sided tape. I give it a bit of a rub down. Maybe that'll get it sticking better and I'll be able to peel it up a little bit easier. Nearly there. Promise, last one. Oh, nearly. Last little piece. Right, that's got that. So now what we need to do is we need to create our box base and then we'll create our lid. So what I'm going to do is I'm taking this edge here and I'm folding it round to create a nice, neat corner on my box. And I shall do the same on this side as well. So can you see this sort of starting to come together now as a box? Okay. So I'm now going to tuck these panels in at the back. So it's a bit like, I suppose it's a bit like a Malteser box shape actually. but they have fancy openings now. Okay, so there's my box. Okay, so now what I can do is I can pop the lid down, and I can use the lid to help me, use the base to help me stick the lid down so that it's not too tight, so that it will actually open and close. Okay, and I think we perhaps just need to create a little thumb hole there. So I'm just going to reach for my 1-inch circle punch, and I'm just going to cut out a little semicircle about halfway along, roughly, just to create a little thumb hole so that it's a little bit easier to open that box there. I've got a little bit of a lifted spot there, but I can always put a glue dot on that if I need to. So that's basically our box, but now we're going to decorate it. So I want to decorate this with the free skate. So what I've got some here is I've got some very vanilla cardstock. Because we're using it with crumb cake, I thought very vanilla would work a bit better than doing the sort of stark contrast of white. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stamp the skates, and I'm going to stamp them in our sort of medium shade of brown, which is soft suede. We have got early espresso, but that is practically black. So I chose to go for a mid-tone, and we'll see how that works out. So I'm just going to ink up my stamp, then I'm going to stamp that on my cardstock like so, and I'm going to ink up a second one and hopefully be able to fit that on the same piece of cardstock. Yeah, there we go. Okay, then I'm also going to cut out, I'm going to stamp some holly. There's a holly leaves and berries as well in this stamp set. Not quite sure how many I'm going to need, so I'm just going to stamp 3 of them there. Okay, so before I die cut these out, just to make life a little bit easier, I'm going to get my stamping blends out, and I'm just going to colour them in. I'm using dark real red on the berries. I'm not doing any fancy shading here. I'm literally just doing some very, very quick colouring, using my lovely blends pens because they dry so lovely, don't leave any horrible streaky marks. And then I'm going to use the dark shaded spruce for the holly leaves. So I thought that was a very, very lovely evergreeny sort of colour. So I'm just going to do those. If you are like an expert colourist, my friend Tara at Tara Fowler Crafting, she's very arty, much more arty than me, and she makes such a lovely job of colouring things in. Then please be my guest. But I like to keep things nice and simple because I'm really not an artist, and that's why I love using stamps, because it enables me to be creative, and I don't have to draw a thing. There we go. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to use the coordinating dies. So if we have a look at the dies here, we've got a coordinating die for the holly and berries. We have a coordinating die for the skate. There's also a decorative die for the skate if you wanted to do something decorative. We've also got this lovely sort of holly bow. I'm going to cut one of those out because I want to see what it looks like. There's a long bow, and there's also a metallic element that you can use for the skate. So I'm going to cut some of those out too. So I'll be back in a moment when I finish die cutting all the pieces out. And through the magic of video, I'm back again now after having die cut all those bits and pieces out. So I'm now just going to see what I want to do with those to create a nice decoration for my box. Now I think those skates look a little bit tidy as they are. They look a little bit clean. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my crumb cake ink pad and one of my stamping sponges. Not glycerin, worried with glycerin or anything on this occasion, because what I want to do is I just want to add really just a sort of a hint of colour around the edge of these, and I may be a little bit light at the moment. I may need to go in for a little bit heavier colour, because I want to create a little bit of more of a vintage look on these boots. Okay, I think that'll do quite nicely. Let's go in for the second one. The reason I rub my ink into the grid paper is to hopefully avoid any super harsh lines, so that I hopefully get a nice bit of a blend when I come in with my sponge. Let's have a look, see how that compares to the other one. Yes, I think I'm quite happy with that. That's quite nice. And what I've also done is I cut out a couple of those holly boughs in shaded spruce card, and I think you'll see that's really detailed and lovely. Probably snip those down a bit, make some nice things with those. I'm going to use some of my liquid glue to stick down these metallic blades on these skates. Now, I know skate blades are normally silver, but again, in the keeping of making it look nice on the card, I've actually gone for our copper foil to cut them out, because I thought that would tie in a little bit nicer with the design that I was going for today. So I'm just going to line those up, stick those over. A bit heavy-handed with the glue, but that will dry clear, that will be fine. And again, stick that one down over the top as well. And just leave those to one side, perhaps under something heavy, like a big monster block. I'll pop those under there so that can squash those down and make sure they adhere nicely. So back to our box. So what I was thinking is the skates will probably sort of dangle something like this. So I want to create a little bit of decoration. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to snip these little holly boughs in half. I've no idea if I'm actually going to end up using them or not yet. This is just, I'm just sort of having a bit of a play now. And I've also got these coloured in hollies. I also pulled out the sprig punch that was in our Christmas catalogue last year. And I'm going to cut out a few sprigs in the soft suede cardstock. Again, don't really know how many I want or what I'm going to do with them yet. I'm just sort of making this up as I go along at the moment. So I've got various trims and ribbons and things that I could use on this box. So we've got some holly. So I did pull in the real red, but no, I don't think that's really going to work. It's not a good contrast against the crumb cake. I've pulled in one of the ribbons from, now I think this comes from the Magnolia pair of ribbons. You've got some green Mossy Meadow twine that comes with it, and you've also got this ribbon here, and that's quite nice. I'll perhaps just leave that draped a moment. I've also got some of the copper trim to maybe tie in a little bit, so you can see this stuff sort of spreads out. It's quite fun. Makes really good fish nets if you've got some of the fish related stamps and things. So that's the copper trim. I also pulled out the, what's this one called, the braided linen trim, because I think that's always quite good with grungy projects. And I also pulled out some of our linen thread. Now I think the linen thread's a little bit pale. And you know what, I think actually the braided linen I think is my #1 favourite. So I'm just going to put those other ribbons to one side because I'm not going to use those today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave myself quite a long bit in case I want to tie a bow, and then I think I'm going to wrap this around my box a couple of times, and again leave quite a long bit. And it's a bit sort of rustic looking, and I don't want it to be super neat because that's not the kind of project that we're making today. It's a little bit sort of grungy and rustic looking. So I'm going to tie this up now, and this will create a bit like a belly band really. It'll help hold the box closed, but it'll also add a little bit of decoration. So this can easily be slid off and on the box. Okay, and I'm going to just spread those little bits out a little bit and maybe twizzle it round a touch as well. Right, let's have a look at those skates now and see how they're drying off. Probably need to trim this down, but I'm going to leave it as is at the moment. So we've got a skate there and maybe a skate there. Yeah, overlapping like that. They're sort of hanging like a, perhaps we need to pull that over a bit actually. So they're hanging a bit like a pair of skates hanging off this ribbon. Like so. Okay, and then if we want to, we could use some of this spriggy stuff up here as well to create a little bit of decoration for our box. maybe pop on some holly and berries as well. So you get the idea, something along those lines, I think. So I think what I'll do first is I will stick the skates down. So I'm going to stick the base one down with liquid glue, and I'm just going to run the glue sort of up the centre of it really, because a little bit of it might be hanging off. So this is our base skate. So I'm just going to pop that one there. And then this one that's over the top, I think I might use our old friends, the Stampin' Dimensionals, just to raise that up a little bit. And again, it may end up hanging off a little bit, so I won't put anything that's too near the edge. So we'll just pop those on, and I think we'll pop that underneath, and just so the other skate's poking out from underneath it. Okay, so let's give these a tie, and I'm going to make them a bit smaller and a bit neater, and then I'm going to trim off these edges that are dangling off the end. We don't need all of those. So I think what I'm going to do is probably glue dots now. I think they'll be our best friend adhesive wise to pop all these little elements on. I think I shall start with my holly, and I'm going to pop that just there, and then I think I might go for some of these sprigs from the Sprig Punch. So let's pop that. Sorry if my head's getting in the way. I wanted to pop that, tuck that in underneath there. Oh yeah, that works really well. Let's see about some of this, some of these green spriggy bits. These this holly bough. See how that looks as well if we tuck that in under there. Yep, nice, liking it. I think we'll have another soft suede sprig coming under over this side, and then I think we are just about done. So there we go. So there's a little box. I'll give you the finished dimensions of the box. It is 3 inches by 5 inches by an inch and a half. So you can get quite a few things in there. I mean, you could probably get a bottle of aftershave in there. You could probably get a small pair of socks in there. You could get some, you could get gift cards in there. You could get packets of sweets in there. You could get some little miniature alcohols in there, some little miniature candles. So there's all sorts of nice size box. So you need a whole sheet of A4 to make it, but there's very. So thank you very much for joining me. Be great if you can hit subscribe, and then you'll never miss any of my videos. Thanks for joining me today, and look forward to crafting with you again soon. Thanks, bye. So thank you very much for joining me. Be great if you can hit subscribe, and then you'll never miss any of my videos. Thanks for joining me today, and look forward to crafting with you again soon. Thanks, bye.